What if the secret to romantic confidence has absolutely nothing to do with your personality?
Right. Or your looks, for that matter.
Exactly. Nothing to do with your jawline or your sense of humor. Like, what if the difference between being chronically single, feeling like you're constantly hitting a wall, and being effortlessly magnetic comes down to something as shockingly mundane as how you stretch in the morning?
How you stretch, how you eat your breakfast. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the piece that completely rewired my thinking. A single, solitary bar of soap.
It completely flips the script, doesn't it?
It really does. I
Yeah.
mean, we have this ingrained reflex when dating goes wrong.
We blame ourselves immediately.
Always. We look in the mirror and launch this massive self-indictment. We say, I'm not funny enough. I'm too introverted. I need to go to the gym more. I need to read more interesting books.
It's an exhausting cycle of perceived inadequacy.
It's exhausting. So consider this deep dive a mission to dismantle that cycle. We are going to unlearn the idea that you need a personality transplant to be worthy of love.
Because you don't. The source material we have in front of us today strips all of that away. It argues that true magnetic self-confidence in a romantic setting isn't a mystical aura.
Right, not something you're just born with.
Exactly. It isn't an epiphany you wait for. It is a biological and physiological reality that you construct, brick by brick.
Through private habits, right?
Intensely private physical daily habits. We're going to explore how shifting your internal solitary physical habits can completely transform the way you interact with people out in the world.
And to understand how to build that properly, we first have to look at how we usually get it wrong, don't we?
We do. The author opens by identifying a psychological pitfall that is incredibly seductive, especially when we are feeling isolated or low.
The other dependent romance.
Yes. This concept of other-dependent romance, it's relying entirely on someone else to make you feel lovable.
It's outsourcing your self-esteem. You enter the romantic arena without a baseline of self-love, and you effectively hand over the clipboard to a partner.
You're saying, please grade me.
Right. Please tell me I have value.
You're putting the entire burden of your existential worth onto a third party. And from a psychological standpoint, this is a highly volatile state to live in.
Because it's completely out of your control.
Exactly. Why do we do it? Because actively building your own self-worth requires you to face your own shadows.
It's hard work.
It's really hard work. You have to sit with your insecurities, acknowledge your flaws, and decide to care for yourself regardless. That is heavy, often painful work.
So the shortcut is to find someone who is just, like, infatuated with you.
Right, to serve as a mirror that only reflects your good angles.
But the instability of that is terrifying if you really think about it. I mean, it makes me think about trying to build a solid brick house on the deck of a ship in a storm.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
You can mortar the bricks perfectly, you can paint the walls, you can make the inside look beautiful, but the ground you built it on is entirely at the mercy of the weather.
And in this case, the weather is someone else's mood ring.
Right. If your partner has a terrible day at work, or if they're just distracted and their mood shifts, your whole foundation drops out from under you. You interpret their bad mood as proof that you are unlovable, and the house collapses.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. You are anchored to a fluctuating variable, and the text warns us about a specific permutation of this that happens when two people who both lack confidence find each other.
Oh, the wound licking.
Yes, they recognize that shared insecurity and they bond over it.
The source literally calls it licking each other's wounds, which is such a visceral image. You have two people sitting in the dark, mutually comforting each other about how difficult the world is.
How nobody else understands their depth.
Yeah, and how unfair everything is. It feels good in the moment.
It creates a profound illusion of safety. When you are mutually licking wounds, the relationship feels like a sanctuary because neither of you is asking the other to grow.
It's like an unspoken contract.
Exactly. The contract is, I won't challenge your insecurities if you don't challenge mine. It feels safe because it completely neutralizes the threat of the unknown, but it is effectively a developmental dead end.
It's stagnancy disguised as intimacy.
Stagnancy disguises intimacy. That's exactly what it is. You become codependent in your mutual lack of confidence. The relationship becomes a closed-loop system where you are just recycling the same anxieties.
But wait, hold on, though. If the whole point of modern relationships is vulnerability, aren't we supposed to share these insecurities?
That's a fair question.
Because if we don't bring our wounds to our partners, aren't we just hiding our true selves and performing?
That is the tightrope we walk, and the text draws a very sharp line here. It is not advocating for emotional suppression or putting up a flawless facade.
Okay.
Vulnerability, saying, I am really struggling with my confidence today, or I feel inadequate in this area, that is incredibly healthy. It builds trust.
Right.
But vulnerability is a bridge to mutual understanding. It is not a permanent residence.
So you don't set up camp on the bridge.
Right. You share the pain, you receive support, and then you both walk across the bridge back into the work of growing.
The trap of wound licking is when the vulnerability becomes your entire shared identity.
You stop trying to heal the wound and instead just guard it together. If your goal is long-term romantic success, a life built together, you cannot survive on wound licking.
Both individuals must actively practice generating their own baseline of self-love.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we accept that we cannot outsource this job to a partner,
Right.
and we accept that we currently have zero confidence, we hit a massive logical roadblock here.
How do you just get it?
Yeah, how do we start? We can't just flip a switch and suddenly be deeply in love with ourselves.
And this is where the author introduces a profoundly pragmatic, almost biological hack. The answer is, you do not need to actually feel self-love to begin.
Wait, really?
Yes, the emotion does not need to precede the behavior. You bypass the psychological blockage entirely by physically acting it out.
We are faking it.
Basically, yes, but not in a superficial way. The text talks about using our physical bodies to essentially trick the brain. It says the mind will naturally adapt to the physical habits of the body.
So this is embodied cognition.
It is deeply rooted in the science of embodied cognition. For a long time, the classical view of emotion was entirely top-down.
Like the brain tells the body what to do.
Right. The brain processes an event, feels an emotion like joy or sadness, and then sends a signal to the body to smile or to slump its shoulders.
Makes sense.
But modern psychology and neuroscience have proven it is a two-way street, a continuous feedback loop.
The vagus nerve, right?
Yes, the vagus nerve.
The connection between our facial expressions, our posture, and our nervous system.
Exactly. The vagus nerve acts as an information highway. If you physically adopt the posture of joy, if you pull your shoulders back, lift your chin, and engage the muscles in your face to smile,
Sensory receptors send signals back up.
right back up the vagus nerve to the brain. The brain interprets this physical data and concludes, well, my body is behaving as if we are happy and safe. Therefore, I must produce the neurochemistry of happiness and safety.
It starts releasing dopamine and serotonin.
Exactly.
So it isn't delusion, you are literally reverse engineering the emotions.
You are, and the text provides highly specific, cinematic ways to implement this in your private life.
Which brings us to the morning routine. This completely changed how I think about waking up.
It's so simple, but so effective.
Most of us, especially if we are stressed or lacking confidence, wake up like zombies. We hit snooze, we groan, we curl up tighter into the fetal position.
Listing the day.
We drag ourselves to the bathroom with our shoulders hunched. The source tells us to completely overhaul this. It says we need to wake up and stretch grandly, like a protagonist in a movie who just had the most restorative, perfect sleep of their life.
Yes.
You throw the covers off, you throw your arms wide, you take a massive, theatrical, deep breath.
It seems almost silly, but look at the physiological mechanics of that action. When you are curled in a fetal position, you are protecting your vital organs.
It's a biological posture of defense.
Defense and anxiety, exactly. By throwing your arms out and opening your chest, you are signaling to your nervous system that you are in a safe environment.
You're activating the parasympathetic nervous system.
The rest and digest state rather than the fight or flight sympathetic state.
But the text is very adamant about one specific condition for this practice. We have to do this entirely alone.
Yes, no audience.
No cameras, no performing for a roommate.
That isolation is critical. Think about it. Why do we lack confidence in the first place? Often it is because we are hypersensitive to the perceived judgments of others.
We are constantly monitoring how we are being seen.
Right. If you try to practice this cinematic joy in front of an audience, even a supportive one, part of your cognitive load is diverted to monitoring their reaction.
You're thinking, do I look stupid right now?
Are they judging me? And that introduces anxiety, which completely overrides the positive somatic signals.
It pollutes the experiment.
Exactly. When you are alone in your bedroom, you remove the social gaze. It allows your nervous system to fully absorb the physical sensation of joy without any defensive interference. You are building muscle memory.
And the text takes this theatrical approach straight into breakfast, using one of the most vivid examples I've ever read. It talks about mimicking characters from television commercials when you eat.
I love this part.
It specifically references these classic Japanese ochazuke commercials.
Yes, this is a brilliant illustration. For context, ochazuke is a very humble, simple dish. It is just cooked rice with hot green tea or dashi broth poured over it, often with savory toppings.
And the commercials for this dish are legendary for their intensity.
They really are.
The actor isn't just delicately eating. They are attacking the bowl with sheer, uninhibited bliss. They are shoveling the hot rice into their mouths. They might be sweating a little. They're exhaling deeply and saying, it's hot, but with a smile that reaches their eyes.
They are entirely consumed by the sensory pleasure of this simple bowl of rice.
And the author says to find that character in your mind and embody them when you eat your own breakfast.
Think about what happens biologically when you eat like that. Anxiety physically manifests as tension in the jaw, a tight throat, and shallow breathing.
Right.
If you are stressed, your body diverts blood flow away from the digestive system. By forcing yourself to eat with this exaggerated, uninhibited joy, you cannot physically maintain the muscular tension of anxiety.
You have to loosen your jaw.
You have to breathe deeply to cool the hot food. You are forcing your body into a state of sensory presence and gratitude.
But I have to ask, isn't this teetering on the edge of toxic positivity? Well, if I wake up on a Tuesday, I have a terrible performance review scheduled at work, I'm stressed about rent, and my dating life is a disaster, isn't pretending to be a cheerful anime character eating rice just lying to myself?
I see what you mean.
Isn't it dangerous to suppress those real, valid stressors?
It is a vital question, and it highlights the difference between suppression and somatic regulation.
Okay, break that down for me.
Suppression is a cognitive lie. It is your brain telling itself everything is fine, I am not stressed, while your body is actively flooding with cortisol and your chest is tight. That dissonance creates more psychological damage.
Right, because your body knows you're lying to it.
Exactly. But what this source advocates is different. You are not denying the reality of the performance review or the rent. You are simply carving out a 3-minute window to provide your brain with an alternative physical reality.
You are giving your nervous system permission to experience joy despite the external stressors.
You are proving to your body that it still has the capacity to feel good.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yes. And by doing this repeatedly, the cinematic stretch in the morning, the joyful breakfast, you're incrementally overwriting your default baseline. You are teaching your nervous system that misery and tension do not have to be a permanent state.
You build a physical resilience that makes the external stressors easier to handle.
Exactly.
So we start the day strong. We stretch, we eat our rice, our nervous system is regulating, and then for so many of us, the momentum entirely crashes the moment we step into the bathroom.
The dreaded shower routine.
Yes, the text points to our hygiene and bathing routines as this hidden, massive source of daily trauma and insecurity.
It is a fascinating pivot. The author establishes that basic cleanliness is the absolute non-negotiable baseline for romantic connection. If you want someone to be physically close to you, you must be clean.
But it acknowledges a very painful reality. For people lacking confidence or dealing with depression or just carrying immense daily stress, bathing is not a relaxing spa experience.
No, it feels like an insurmountable chore.
Especially in the summer, when the anxiety about body odor spikes. You desperately want to be close to someone, but the sheer physical and mental effort required to get clean and presentable feels exhausting.
It takes so much energy.
And if you hate the process of getting clean, you are fundamentally uncomfortable in your own skin before you even walk out the front door.
To understand why bathing has become so exhausting, we have to look at the sociology of modern self-care.
Oh, this is a big one.
We live in an era where the concept of grooming has been intensely monetized. The message broadcasted to us is that taking care of your body requires a complex, multi-step regimen.
The 10-step routines, the pre-shampoo scrub, the clarifying shampoo, the specialized conditioner, the body wash, the exfoliating loofah, the post-shower body oil, the lotions. It's endless.
Precisely. Capitalism has hijacked our basic hygiene by creating highly specific insecurities and then selling us a myriad of products to fix them.
And the psychological result is immense decision fatigue.
The bathroom becomes a place of high-stakes performance rather than a place of cleansing.
It is like we have turned getting clean into an Olympic sport. You stand at the edge of the bathroom and look at all those bottles, and you think, if I don't have the energy to execute the perfect routine, to stick the landing on every single step, I am just going to forfeit.
So you either avoid showering altogether or you do it with immense resentment.
And that resentment completely erodes your confidence.
The author found their way out of this trap through a deeply moving realization. They were watching a documentary featuring children living in impoverished conditions in a developing country.
It's soap scene.
Yes. These families had almost nothing, and the footage showed a group of children sharing a single small sliver of soap.
And the way the text describes this footage is incredible. The children weren't rushing. They were taking this tiny piece of soap and carefully, meticulously washing their entire bodies, their hair, behind their ears, their torsos, their feet.
They were completely focused on the simple act of getting clean with the absolute bare minimum of resources.
That image shattered the author's paradigm. It revealed how absurd our modern burden of performative self-care truly is. It inspired what they call the one soap habit.
The radical shift. The author decided to throw out the complex routines and invest in one high-quality bar of soap.
The text suggests things like a traditional persimmon tannin soap.
Which is great for deodorizing.
Right. Or a rich milk soap or charcoal. And the rule is brilliantly simple. You use that one bar of soap for everything, from the top of your head to the soles of your feet.
The psychological relief of this cannot be overstated. By reducing your routine to a single tool, you eliminate the Olympic sport aspect. You remove decision fatigue entirely.
You are returning to playing catch in the backyard just for the joy of the movement.
I love that comparison. It forces mindfulness, right? If you only have one bar of soap, you can't be mentally checking off a list of products.
You are forced to focus on the sensory experience of that specific soap.
Yes. The text encourages us to bring that cinematic visualization back into the bathroom. It suggests imagining a commercial where someone is slowly, deliberately pouring warm water over their shoulder.
When you strip away the anxiety of the routine, you can finally focus on the tactile pleasure.
The richness of the lather, the warmth of the water on your skin, the scent of the soap.
You transform the bathroom from a chamber of exhausting obligations into a sanctuary of sensory grounding.
And the author includes a detail that I find profoundly beautiful. They insist that when that bar of soap gets worn down to a tiny sliver, you do not throw it away.
You might clean it up, press it into the new bar, or just use it carefully until it dissolves completely.
That brings it right back to the children in the documentary.
Exactly. It connects you to a mindset of deep appreciation. It requires a slowness and a presence to use a tiny sliver of soap. But more importantly, it cultivates a fundamental respect for the tools that keep you clean, and by extension, a deep respect for the body that is being cleansed.
You cannot despise your physical form while you are thoughtfully, deliberately washing it with a single piece of soap.
This realization about the hidden burdens we carry in the bathroom actually expands into a much larger societal critique within the source material.
It does. It leads into how we physically style ourselves and the immense quiet suffering we endure just to meet societal expectations.
The text uses a highly relatable metaphor here, specifically focusing on women, though the underlying psychology applies to everyone. It is the metaphor of short hair.
The secret burden of long hair. The text claims that if you look closely or scour anonymous online forums, you will find an ocean of women who harbor a desperate, secret desire to chop all their hair off.
To get a pixie cut or a short bob.
But they don't do it, and the reason they don't do it is rooted in internalized, often deeply patriarchal ideals of attractiveness. There is a pervasive societal narrative that long hair is the ultimate symbol of femininity and romantic desirability.
But the reality of maintaining that symbol is often miserable. The text points out that in the heat of summer, long hair becomes this heavy, oppressive blanket. Washing it, conditioning it, detangling it, and spending 45 minutes blow-drying it becomes a daily compounding source of stress.
Think about the biological toll of that chronic daily stress. If you are dreading the physical maintenance of your own body every single day, your cortisol levels are constantly elevated.
You are living in a state of low-grade physiological friction with yourself.
But the psychological trap is so insidious. The text notes that these women will look at magazines, they will see a beautiful short hairstyle that they covet, and their immediate internal monologue is, that wouldn't suit my face shape.
Or I'm not thin enough for that.
Or my partner wouldn't like it. They trap themselves in physical discomfort because they're prioritizing an imagined external gaze over their own internal somatic peace.
They believe they have to pay a daily tax of physical discomfort to rent space in the dating world.
So the source argues that letting go of this, actually making the appointment and cutting the hair, is a massive act of courage. It is not, as society might tell you, giving up on yourself.
It is the profound act of re-choosing a physical form that honors who you are today and explicitly relieves your daily stress.
If we zoom out from the hair metaphor, the text is asking a vital question. How many micro decisions do you make daily that cause you physical or psychological discomfort simply because you believe it is required to be attractive?
Oh, man. It's the clothes that pinch, the high heels that cause blisters, the restrictive
The
shapewear.
facial hair you hate maintaining but feel you must.
Exactly. The psychological shift the author is demanding is moving from a framework of I must painfully maintain this ideal to earn love to a framework of I am actively choosing the physical realities that make my daily life easier, more comfortable, and more joyful.
The source makes a fascinating promise here. It says if you make these changes, if you switch to the one soap, if you cut the hair, the discomfort of breaking the norm fades very quickly.
After 1 to 3 months, this new, comfortable reality simply becomes your baseline. It stops being a bold statement and just becomes who you are. But I need to challenge this because I know what the hyper-analytical, practical listener is thinking right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
If the entire premise of this deep dive is about building romantic confidence to connect with partners, and we know empirically that societal beauty standards exist and influence attraction, aren't we taking a massive risk?
By opting for comfort.
Yeah, if we just abandon the ideals and say, I'm wearing loose clothes and chopping my hair because it's comfortable, aren't we actively removing ourselves from the traditional dating pool? Aren't we sabotaging our chances?
It is the most common fear when discussing this topic, but the text provides a brilliant counterargument rooted in the biology of attraction.
I'm all ears.
The chronic stress of trying to maintain a false, uncomfortable ideal absolutely decimates your actual attractiveness. When you are stressed about your appearance, when your clothes pinch, when you are exhausted from your morning routine, your body language reflects it. Your shoulders are tight, your smile is strained, your energy is closed off.
That makes sense.
The text even points out that this chronic stress manifests physiologically. It triggers cortisol, which causes skin breakouts. It disrupts your sleep, it drains your vitality.
You're radiating tension.
Exactly. No amount of perfectly styled hair or trendy clothing can mask the energetic frequency of someone who is deeply uncomfortable in their own skin. Humans are highly attuned to authenticity.
True. Magnetic attractiveness stems from ease.
When you are genuinely comfortable, you project warmth. You have surplus energy to actually listen and connect with the person in front of you, rather than spending that energy monitoring your own discomfort.
The energy of ease will always outcompete the energy of strained perfection.
It always wins.
Okay, that completely reframes it. The ease is the attraction. So let's look at the timeline. We've done the solitary work. We have our cinematic stretch, our joyful breakfast, our single bar of soap, and we've shed the restrictive physical ideals. We are living comfortably in our own private world. The anxiety baseline is lowered.
Which means the foundation for public interaction is set. You aren't walking into a conversation carrying a heavy backpack of bodily insecurity.
But talking to someone you find incredibly attractive is still a massive leap from eating rice alone in your kitchen.
It is a big jump.
The text gives us a very specific mental architecture for navigating these interactions.
Yeah.
It introduces the already dating mindset.
This is a masterful cognitive reframe that directly targets how our nervous system reacts to social threats. Think about how people typically approach someone they are attracted to. They approach it as an audition.
Yes, oh my gosh, yes. You were standing there thinking, I need to prove my worth in the next 5 minutes. I need to be funny, I need to be charming, I need to not say anything stupid.
That audition mindset triggers the sympathetic nervous system. It is a state of threat. You are hyper-vigilant, constantly scanning their face for micro-expressions of rejection. Your breathing gets shallow, your voice might pitch up, your muscles tighten.
And that tension is highly contagious.
Very. If you are tense, the person you are talking to will subconsciously become tense.
So the already dating trick flips that entirely. The text says, when you speak to this person, you must visualize a reality where the audition is over. You imagine a future where you are already a couple, you have been dating successfully for a while, and you are entirely secure in their affection.
Imagine the body language of a couple on their 3-year anniversary versus a couple on a blind date.
Completely different.
On a blind date, you sit up perfectly straight, you hold your breath, you police every word. On a 3-year anniversary, you slouch comfortably in the booth, you steal a fry off their plate, you laugh easily.
And crucially, silences aren't terrifying. If there is a 10-second lull in the conversation on a first date, you panic and think it's over. If you are already dating, you just let the silence breathe, you take a sip of water. It is a shared, comfortable silence.
By adopting the already dating visualization, you are tricking your brain into activating the parasympathetic nervous system, the social engagement system. Your vocal tone drops, your shoulders relax, and you project an aura of safety. You become incredibly easy to be around.
But the text immediately follows this up with a non-negotiable caveat because it knows that pure delusion is dangerous.
Right, you can't just lose touch with reality.
It introduces what we can call the meta-observer.
Yes. This is where the psychological maturity comes in. While you are adopting the relaxed persona of someone who is already dating, you must simultaneously maintain a detached, objective perspective in your own mind. You must step back and observe yourself in the act of practicing this confidence.
The source phrases it perfectly. You have to know internally you're a person lacking confidence who is currently practicing confidence.
This is a technique often used in cognitive behavioral therapy, sometimes called cognitive diffusion. If you blindly convince yourself, I am an invincible, effortlessly confident alpha, you are building a very brittle persona.
Because reality is going to test it.
Exactly. The moment something unpredictable happens, you spill your drink, you stutter, or they gently disagree with an opinion you have, that fragile illusion shatters. Your brain realizes it was a lie, and you crash violently into panic and shame.
It's the tightrope analogy. If you convince yourself you are a world-renowned, flawless acrobat walking a tightrope without a net, the absolute second your foot slips even a millimeter, sheer terror takes over. You flail and you fall.
But if your internal monologue is, I am a beginner, I am wearing a safety harness, and I am just practicing walking on this wire, the dynamic changes entirely.
A slip is no big deal. You wobble, you rely on the harness, you chuckle, you recalibrate your footing, and you keep walking.
That is the power of the meta-observer. It provides emotional regulation in real time. It ensures that a minor mistake does not become an identity crisis. The text guarantees that your practiced confidence will not disappear just because you acknowledge it. It's a work in progress.
In fact, that humility makes you flexible.
It prevents the toxic, arrogant overcompensation that deeply insecure people often rely on when they are terrified of being found out.
Okay, so we are relaxed. We have our safety harness on. We are standing in front of them, projecting ease. But eventually, we have to actually exchange words. What do we say?
The source gives us a golden rule for conversation that completely dismantles how most of us operate.
It starts by identifying a hidden advantage that people who lack confidence possess. If you have spent your life feeling insecure, if you have been hurt or felt inadequate, you have likely developed a highly attuned capacity for empathy.
Because you know intimately what emotional discomfort feels like, you can easily recognize it in others.
Exactly. You are hyperperceptive. The text teaches us how to utilize this empathy effectively in conversation, primarily by telling us what not to do.
And what we usually do is interrogate people.
We do. When we are nervous and trying to keep a conversation alive, we default to factual, logistical questions. Where do you work? How long you lived in the city? What did you major in? Did you drive or take the train?
We treat the conversation like a data collection exercise. We fire off these questions because we are terrified of dead air. But the text warns that factual interrogation transmits immense tension. It forces the other person to constantly retrieve data, and it keeps the conversation trapped in the analytical, logical part of the brain.
It feels like an interview, not a connection. To break this habit, the source provides a highly practical template. It uses the example of someone talking about a trip to Universal Studios Japan, USJ.
Let's analyze this USJ example because it perfectly illustrates the mechanics of emotional connection versus factual data gathering.
So imagine the person you were attracted to is excitedly telling you about their recent trip to USJ. They're animated. If you are operating from a place of nervous data collection, your instinct is to seize on a fact. You might say, oh, I heard they opened that new roller coaster. Is it really a 3-hour rate?
Look at what that specific question does to the conversational dynamic. The speaker was in a state of elevated joy, reliving the excitement of the park. Your factual question acts as an anchor, dragging them out of that emotional state and forcing them to access negative logistics.
Right. Now they have to think about standing in the hot sun for 3 hours. You have effectively stalled their emotional momentum.
You have prioritized data over limbic resonance. Limbic resonance is the capacity for sharing deep emotional states. The source instructs us to ignore the facts initially and focus entirely on validating and amplifying the speaker's emotion.
So instead of asking about the wait time, You reflect their energy.
Oh.
You say, waiting that long must build up the anticipation so much. You must have been so thrilled when you finally got strapped into the ride.
Notice the shift. You are not asking them to retrieve data. You are inviting them to expand on their joy. You are building an emotional bridge. And the brilliance of this is that it requires absolutely zero domain expertise from you.
That is the most relieving part. You don't need to know anything about theme parks or roller coasters or USJ. You don't have to scramble to sound knowledgeable. You just have to understand the fundamental human emotion of anticipation and excitement.
It takes the pressure off you to be interesting and instead makes you profoundly interested. And the text explicitly states that this emotional alignment bridges the gap instantly, universally, regardless of gender or background.
But I know my highly analytical listeners are pacing the room right now.
What are they thinking?
What if I am a deeply practical person? What if I actually hate waiting in lines? And I am genuinely intellectually curious if the new ride is worth a 3-hour wait? Is the source saying that asking factual questions is inherently wrong or anti-romantic?
Not at all. The source is not banning facts. It is dictating the order of operations. It is about sequence.
Emotion first, logic second.
Precisely. If you lead with facts, you build a wall. If you lead with emotion, you build trust. Once you have validated their excitement, once they feel felt and heard by you, the emotional bridge is solid. At that point, the conversation naturally relaxes.
And then you can ask.
Then you can casually ask, so, strategically, was the 3 hours worth it, or should I get the fast pass? Because the emotional connection is established, the factual question no longer feels like an interrogation, it feels like shared curiosity. Empathy is the hook, facts are the follow-up.
It is such a clarifying way to view human interaction. It strips away all the performative pressure.
It does, and if we look at the entire journey we have mapped out today, we see a unified philosophy of reduction.
We started by looking at the trap of other-dependent romance, the desperate outsourcing of our self-worth that leaves us vulnerable to every slight change in the weather. And we learned that the antidote isn't forcing ourselves to suddenly have high self-esteem.
The antidote is biological. It begins in the absolute privacy of your morning.
It's the cinematic stretch that tells your nervous system you are safe. It is the uninhibited sensory joy of mimicking a commercial actor eating a hot bowl of rice. It is the radical, rebellious simplicity of throwing out the 10-step beauty routine and washing your entire body mindfully and respectfully with a single bar of soap.
It is the courage to shed the exhausting physical expectations, like the hair that causes you daily stress, and choosing the profound attractiveness of somatic ease.
And finally, it is taking that internal ease out into the world, equipping yourself with the safety harness of the meta-observer, visualizing a secure, already dating reality, and using your innate empathy to connect with the emotions of others rather than interrogating them for facts.
The core message of this source material, the one thing you must internalize, is that agency is entirely yours. You do not have to wait for someone to arrive and grant you permission to feel lovable. You can manually, physically construct the architecture of your own confidence.
And you can start the absolute moment you wake up tomorrow morning. Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with. Something to quietly mull over on your own time. We spend so much of our lives waiting in the wings. We wait for the right person to walk into the room, to look at us, and finally hand us the script that says we are special, that we're worthy of the spotlight. We think they hold the key to our confidence. But what if the person you have been waiting for this whole time, the one who can actually unlock all of that magnetic energy, is just the version of you that knows how to fully, unapologetically enjoy a hot bowl of rice?